Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you are doing well. I hope you're doing well. This video over here is a reading and a reaction to this list over here next to my head. This list, which was posted by a fledgling hip-hop podcast on Twitter, is, in my opinion, one of the worst, greatest rappers of all time lists I've ever seen. And I'm not alone in that assessment, because after this list was posted, the internet exploded. Literally, the worst placement on this entire list was trending for an hour or two. The internet exploded, not only with response lists, but just general disgust at how ridiculous it is. I'm going to leave the intro at that. We will link the list down below. You can check it out for yourselves. And I'm going to go over how preposterous this hierarchy of supposedly the greatest rappers of all time is. And I will add a few notes at the end of rappers who I think should have made the list. Not a complete list of rappers who I like and I think are worthy of such a list, but obvious blind spots this one has. So let's start with the first two. We have Jay-Z and Nas at number 1 and number 2. Now, these first two placements say to me literally everything. Literally everything. They tell me so much about what the rest of this list is going to play out like. Not only because number 1, I think if you were going to have the Jay-Z Nas argument, the Jay-Z Nas comparison, the true rap snob puts Nas over Jay-Z. I mean, look, I love a lot of Jay's records. I think Jay has put out more impressive albums, I think, if we compare one to one, because Jay does have some flops in his discography, of course. I think Jay has put out more records I'm genuinely impressed by than Nas. And I think we can credit Jay for expanding the hip-hop fan base pretty widely with the way that he incorporated elements of pop into his music over the years. However, if I were to put Jay-Z and Nas lyric for lyric, and if I was to pick the artist that I think stuck more passionately to that original hip-hop blueprint, it would be Nas. Now look, I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong answer here in terms of which of these two is better, but again, placing Jay-Z over Nas tells me a lot about what kind of sounds and what kind of artists you're going to be favoring throughout the rest of this list. You're most likely going to be going crazy for a lot of 2000s hip-hop. You are most likely going to be overblowing and gassing up a lot of bad bling era hip-hop and hip-hop artists that do not deserve to be on this list. So, you know, to me, that says a lot. And of course, having both of these two at number 1 and number 2 says that there's most likely going to be a huge New York, a huge East Coast bias throughout this list. Now we have the third placement, the placement that really lit this list the fuck up on the internet. And that is Joe Budden at number 3. I'm sorry. Respect to Joe as an artist, as a lyricist, as a figure in the hip hop community, as a media mogul in his own right. But Joe Budden is not number 3 on any greatest rappers of all time list ever, for any reason. Joe does not have the influence musically on the culture. Sure, he has influence on the culture in terms of his point of view, his perception, how he moves and shakes throughout the industry. But Joe does not really have the talent or the historical significance to be placed at number 3 on this list. I would even argue on this list at all, you know, and again, that's not because I hate Joe or I think he's a terrible person, but this is objectively a really stupid placement. This is a ridiculous placement. This makes me wonder genuinely if this list is just fucking trolling, but most likely there are people out there who genuinely think this, so let's continue on. Styles P at number 4. I cannot deny that Styles P is a talented rapper, but Jesus, again, another instance of an artist who does have lyrical ability. He is a cold-blooded dude. He is a cold-blooded rapper, but he does not have the back catalog. There are elements of this list that make me think, okay, well, maybe they're thinking more in terms of like, who's a good like battle rapper who could like really go toe to toe lyrically and destroy another dude. There's elements of this list that make me wonder if they're using that metric and not so much albums to dictate whether or not certain artists place on this list or place higher than others. But when we go lower into the list, there are lyricists here who are pretty much trash. And also Drake, not to spoil the list early, but Drake is at number 23. Having Drake on this list delegitimizes so many possible elements of it, not only because Drake has used tons of ghostwriters throughout his career, so we don't even really know what stuff of his he's really writing and what he's not really writing. And on top of that, who is Drake really bodying? Nobody. Of the two huge rap beefs he's been involved in, we had the Meek Mill situation, which he won just because Meek came through with a really crappy response that he rushed. The Pusha T situation, he got myrtleized in. And Joe Budden going after him for the longest time, he ran away from because he knew that he wouldn't be able to go toe to toe with Joe lyrically. Joe would smother him. So Drake does not deserve to be on this list. I'm sorry. He has influenced the culture greatly, but it's the type of influence that I think is going to be short-lived. It's kind of like 50 Cent influence, in my view, who is also on this list later into the list. And in my opinion, another person here who doesn't really have the chops or the catalog to come into the fold here, but let's continue. We have, after that, Black Thought, who honestly I think is a top 10 rapper. Like, dude has bars, dude has technical ability, dude has proven himself to be incredibly talented for album after album after album after album. I don't think there's really any doubt to whether or not Black Thought deserves placement on this list and deserves very high placement on this list. The next two also confused me a little bit. Fabulous, Jadakiss. I'm more of a Jada fan than a Fabulous fan, so I don't get how Fabulous places higher. But again, I think this is another instance of incredible East Coast bias on the list because, look, here's the thing. Fabulous does not have a classic. He doesn't. Jadakiss, I would argue, has made some good records over the years, but there are other hip-hop artists who have made multiple classics that are not on this list at all, and yet he's placing at number 7. I don't know how that works. Again, I do think he is a good rapper. I think he has made some killer features over the years. I think he's made a lot of killer tracks. I think as far as East Coast rappers go, Jadakiss is one of the most unique and identifiable. If we're going off of raw lyrical ability alone, I think that Jadakiss does deserve some kind of placement on this list, but nowhere near the top 10. Biggie number 8, which is fucking ridiculous how Biggie lands below Jadakiss, Fabulous, Styles P, and Joe Budden. You have to be on crack, but at least he's in the top 10, I guess. At least Ghostface is in the top 10. I think if a lot of old heads are being honest with themselves, they should put Kendrick somewhere in the top 10, if not at least at number 10. So I don't disagree with the placement of Kendrick at 10, even if there are rappers that he is way better than placed above him. Beanie Siegel. Why? Number 11, why? That is such a cracked out choice, especially with it being essentially like a spit in the face to place him above Rakim. Most of the rappers on this list would not be rapping at all, or at least be rapping in the way that they are rapping, if not for Rakim. And he's a rap artist who has been around for a very, very, very long time, or at least his material has, and it still sounds incredibly fresh today. His flows still sound impeccable today. They don't sound really awkward or clunky in the way that a lot of rap flows from the 80s tend to sound with years passing on. No, Rakim's flows, Rakim's verses still sound dope to this day. He deserves higher placement on this list and much more respect than he's being given, being placed underneath Never Had a Classic Album, Beanie Siegel. Moving on from there, Pusha T. There are rappers then he's better than above him, but I wouldn't deny him a placement between 10 and 20. Pusha T is an excellent rapper, excellent lyricist, impressive catalog, super influential, has put out just a killer series of verses over the years. Redman at number 14. I do love Redman. Dude has multiple classics under his belt. Dude back in the day was an animal, but I don't think he is necessarily better or more essential than some of the rappers underneath him right now, like Pac and Scarface, Andre 3000, just to note the few that are directly underneath him. I think that his placement here, while he should be on this list, is another indication of that weird East Coast bias. And again, going further, we have Scarface, who is excellent, would not deny him a spot in the top 20. I don't mind his placement here. Andre 3000 would honestly be in my top 10. Do not know how he landed at number 17 here. Andre, for most hip-hop fans, I think would land in the top 10. Dude's flow, his pen game is unparalleled by most, and as a result of that, the Outkast discography, which, yes, of course, Big Boy is one half of that. You can't deny that, but still, Andre's input on that alone makes the Outkast discography just something most artists cannot even approach. They just can't. So Andre should be a lot higher, because not only does he have, again, that lyrical ability, that talent for flow, but also, like, he has the records, he has the albums. And over the course of hip hop's history, it is rare that you have one artist or a group like Outkast that has so many great albums, one after another, such an impressive, amazing streak. So Andre should be a lot higher. Common, I think, is a great Chicago rapper, super talented guy, classic records, super influential, great pen game. His flow isn't super technical or out there or anything, but his delivery is immense and significant, and I think makes him stand out. Dude is rapping in a way where he's like proclaiming these awesome, profound truths. I love Common. Common is great. At number 19, J. Cole. No, not at number 19. If you are all about lyrics and you really want to make a list that tries to play politics a little bit and just be friendly toward the newer generation and include artists that are more contemporary because you don't want the new listeners to feel left out, I understand that you may want to slip J. Cole in here, but at number 19, J. Cole does not have the records. J. Cole, while he does address some important social issues in his music, I don't think has the pen game that a lot of people build him up to have. You guys have already seen my reviews. You know that I think J. Cole is okay. Royce da 5'9", if you really want, maybe, but not at number 21, and especially not over DMX, for Christ's sake. I mean, I know DMX doesn't have that many classic records, but goddamn, dude has a definitive delivery, was one of the most important hip-hop artists of his era. I think he's fine at this point in the list, around in this area, 20 to 30 range, but he should not be anywhere near Royce or Drake, who, again, at number 23. Drake at number 23 is disgusting. It's really like a spit in the face to everybody who falls underneath him right now. T.I. at number 24, if you want, there are Southern hip hop artists and outfits who I like more than T.I., but T.I. is a really important cultural figure in hip hop because of the music he came out with. He's not one of my favorite rappers of all time, but he is one of the most significant rappers in the South ever. I, again, would not deny him this placement in this list. 25, Raekwon. I personally would place him higher. Maybe that's an example of me having a bit of woo bias here, but I would still place him higher. And I didn't mention earlier that number 9, Ghostface, I'm fine with that placement. I actually love Ghostface Killah, one of my favorite rap artists of all time. I think he has an incredibly solid solo discography, even if it is a bit shaky these days. And I would say he was the most successful consistently to be putting out great solo albums outside of the context of the Wu-Tang Clan. Most of the members had maybe 1 or 2 great albums once they finally fractured off from the group. Ghostface has hit after hit after hit after hit in terms of just, a solid hip-hop discography. After that, we have Twista, who, does not have the best discography out there. It's spotty, but you have to admit, as far as Southern rappers go, there are very few who have technically outdone him in terms of flow, in terms of lyrics, in terms of his style and presentation. Dude is a one-of-a-kind rapper who still to this day stands as one of the most unique out there. But the thing is, if you're going to have a Twista in this list, you've also got to throw an Exhibit in here as well. You know what I mean? I think having him at this placement in the list where he is indicative of a certain kind of taste, which is fine. I don't know if I would place him this high in the list, but I think he is deserving of being on a 50 greatest rappers of all time list. After this at 27 is Method Man, which I find a little odd. I do like Method Man's music. He did make some of the most memorable songs and verses in Wu-Tang Clan history, but how are we going to have Method Man at 27 and absolutely no jizza at all on this list? Look at it. There is no jizza on this list. There is none. There is no jizza on this goddamn list. 28 Eminem. I mean, I'm no fan of Eminem's recent stuff, but as far as like the significance of his first two albums, what they did for hip hop, the technical ability he's shown throughout his career, the lyrical ability he's shown throughout his career, his ability to write quality songs too when he is writing a quality song, he does deserve higher placement than 28. He truly and honestly does. As does Prodigy of Mobb Deep fame, and I think Mos Def, I would most likely, for me, I would place somewhere from 10 to 20. Mos Def is incredible. You got to give it to him for Black on Both Sides. You got to give it to him also for
Black Star.
Which, now that I look at this list, yeah, Talib Kweli isn't on here. Which, given some of the more lackluster names coming toward the end of this list, how could he not? Like, why would you put number 50, Lloyd Banks, but not do Talib? That makes absolutely no sense. But moving on, Cool G Rap, okay, throwing it back a little bit. You want to respect the old school? That's cool. I'm not against that, and Cool G Rap is not my favorite old school rapper of all time. There are actually some I would have liked to have seen make this list. I will bring them up later, but I'm not against the position he's been placed at in this list, I suppose. Big Boy at 32, I feel like if you're going to put Andre on a list, you've got to put Big Boy as well, because Big Boy, in a lot of respects, is as good as Andre. Sure, Andre is more out there and eccentric and a bit more of a loose cannon, but Big Boy is an incredibly talented rapper with a great flow and lots of quotables over the course of his career too. So Big Boy does need to be on this list. I most likely would place him a bit higher though. Jeezy, he did come out with essential music in the Bling era. I do not deny that, but I'm not sure if I would have him on my top 50 list. If I was just going by personal taste and personal favorites alone, there are other artists I would place higher. There are other artists that to me would have priority on this list way before Jeezy. As much respect as I have for the dude, for making the splash that he did in the 2000s. Snoop Dogg, I think, could be a bit higher, even though he doesn't quite have the discography. You know, he has a lot more flops than hits in his discog, but still. Cameron, 35, I think is indicative of a bit of an East Coast bias, even though I do like Cameron. Purple Haze is great. Diplomat's debut record is great. I think Dipset is vastly underappreciated in this current decade, but if you're going to be grabbing like rap groups and cliques from various parts of the US and picking out key members from them, why no one from 3 6 Mafia here? Why no one from Freestyle Fellowship? Why no one from Goody Mob? You know what I mean? So if we're being objective, there are rappers in those groups that are as good, if not better, than Cameron, even if they didn't drum up as much attention in their time span, or maybe their popularity when they were at their creative peak was more local, but still, I mean, I still enjoy Cameron, but yeah, I don't know if I would place him around 35. Bun B, I think, is fine. I might place him a little higher. Lil Wayne, I think, is okay at 37, though that's maybe going to piss some people off. I'm not a huge Lil Wayne fan. I'm not a huge Lil Wayne stan. I mean, I think the guy does deserve to be on this list, but he's just not one of my favorites personally. Killer Mike at 38 is cool. I like Killer Mike at 38. Maybe I would place Killer Mike a little higher even, but how are you going to have Killer Mike on the list and no LP? Killer Mike and LP at this point are like a 2-for-1 deal. I mean, most of you wouldn't even be listening to Killer Mike if not for LP. And LP is almost every bit as talented a lyricist as Killer Mike is. So I don't get the misplacement of LP on this list if you're going to have Killer Mike on the list. Ice Cube 39, in a way, is kind of disgusting. Ice Cube needs to be a lot higher. West Coast hip hop would not be anything that it is today if not for Ice fucking Cube. So Ice Cube needs to be way higher, at least in the 10 to 20 range. I know earlier there was Lupe Fiasco in the list. I would most likely place him lower, though Lupe does deserve to be on the list. There's so many names here to keep track of. AZ, New York rapper, great debut album, but not much in the way of a cultural splash. There are a lot of rappers out there that have at least one classic record that I would put on this list way before AZ. 41 Mace, no. Mace should not be on this fucking list. Get Mace the fuck off this list. This is incredibly disgusting New York bias. Get Mace off this fucking list. Mace does not have the discog. Mace does not have the flow. Mace does not have the lyrical ability. Mace does not have much of anything. Get Mace the fuck off this list. Stack Bundles makes even less sense. 8 Ball, I'm fine with the placement there. Big Pun, I think, should be on a list of this caliber. I don't mind him on this list, closer to the bottom. LL Cool J, I like LL Cool J, but there are old school rappers I think deserve way more to be on this list than LL Cool J does. Like, what about Slick Rick? Slick Rick not on this list, but LL Cool J on this list? Are you kidding me? But moving on, Rick Ross. I mean, he's an important figure in hip hop today, but like, no. The dude does not have the importance to the culture or the catalog or the flow or the lyrical ability of a KRS-One, who is not on this list. So Rick Ross should not be on this list just by virtue of there being far better hip-hop artists who did not make the list. 50 Cent, no. Get him off the list. I know 50 Cent is super relevant, was killing it in the 2000s, but his catalog holds no weight over time for me personally. Busta Rhymes, incredibly talented rapper, maybe not the best discography out there, but super talented rapper, can fucking flow his ass off. And just by virtue of that alone, I think he should be on this list and much higher than 49. Lloyd Banks is another what the fuck moment that I will bring up once again. Disgusting, vomit-inducing New York bias on this list. Lloyd Banks should not be anywhere near a fucking top 50 greatest rappers of all time list. Now, having said all of that, here are a bunch of rappers who did not make the list, who are infinitely better than a lot of the rappers who ended up toward the bottom. MF Doom, A$AP Rock, Q-Tip. How the fuck did you forget Q-Tip? GZA, Big L, Lauryn Hill, Del the Funky Fucking Homo Sapien. Again, LP, Blue, Chuck D, KRS-One, Pharoah Monch, Big Daddy Kane. And if we were to throw some newer rappers in there that are just personal favorites of mine, you know, I'd probably throw Billy Woods in here. I would probably throw Danny Brown in here. There are some other artists I would include as well, but look, there are a lot of artists on here that are way better, more talented, and already have more classic albums than Lloyd fucking Banks. So, I don't know, man. This list is a mess. There are some who have been saying Kanye West should be on the list, and I think that if you're going to have Drake on here, you should have Kanye on here. You know what I mean? Kanye has had writers over the years, but at least he's been forthright about those writers. And again, I think there maybe is an argument to not include Kanye on that virtue if you were going to be hardline and say, okay, no ghostwriters, you only write your own stuff, and you're not a rapper / producer, this other shit. But still, having Drake here so high in the list breaks so many of those perceived rules that it doesn't make any sense not to have Kanye here. So through whatever mental gymnastics you put yourself through to justify Kanye's existence on this list, oh, well, he has a great delivery, he's a good songwriter, he's a good producer, he's made classic albums, all of which I think are valid, you know, because your list is your list at the end of the day. But if you're going to have Drake on this fucking list, no Kanye West at all, and you put Lloyd Banks at number 50, whatever. I'm going to leave it at that, I think. This has been a long video, but I think a cathartic video for all of us, because this list sucks. Again, we will link to it down below so you can see how much it sucks for yourself. And Godspeed to anybody who reads this thing and makes it out without giving themselves a migraine headache. So over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, top 50 greatest rappers of all time, forever.